Very quick one today. We can all see everything's crumbling. Things are getting worse and worse by the day. The UK, wow, I've never seen in my entire life things like just falling off a cliff. So basically what's going on? So what's going on at the moment is the bond market is cracking, meaning everyone's scrambling for dollars. So all the central banks suddenly started selling dollars. Japan, they've just gone above 150 yen to the dollar, which is now 50% devaluation in a year. 50%. It was 100 yen before, it's 150 now. Right? Insane amount of devaluation. And so the Japanese central banks is selling all its treasuries. They only have $1 trillion, which really isn't very much, but it's the biggest foreign holdings in the world. But they're trying to sell it in order to sell those to buy yen to prop up, to get dollars into the system. They're also buying all the 10 years, 20 years, the long dated bonds, they're buying them up. They're in quantitative easing again, right? This is how desperate things are, right? So they're in quantitative easing, they're trying to keep that yield curve down, and they're doing everything they can. Looking everywhere, look at elsewhere in the world. China also sold most of its treasuries. It's under 1 trillion now. It used to have 4 trillion. It's also selling everything. Everyone is scrambling. Switzerland just had to use the swap lines with America in order to bail out Credit Suisse, essentially. But if you look more into the details, it actually increased from $3 billion last week to $6 billion. Sorry, $3 billion 2 weeks ago, $6 billion last week, and I can't wait to see what yesterday's one was. I don't know, but we'll see when the details come out. But $6 billion, and it went up from 7 banks requested swap lines to 15 banks requested swap lines, and Wednesdays is most probably even more. So things are beginning to break now. When you sell, right, you're selling your government, your treasuries. So that means the price goes down, right? No one wants, you're flooding the market with these treasuries, and because people want dollars, they don't want treasuries. So therefore the bond prices goes down, which means the yields go up, right? The amount they have to give as interest has to increase in order to get you to buy. And so we have 10-year US treasuries at 4.2%, which is eye-wateringly high. Highest probably it is, in fact, since 2008. So things are going to get worse. Now, normally what would happen, okay, so normally what happens is, and the Fed also, and the Bank of it, and in Britain, they are tied to inflation. So they have to tie their spending when they give out pensions and salaries. They're locked into, they have to do inflation-linked wages, essentially, or inflation-linked pensions. So in the UK, pensions are going to go up 10%. And in the US, they'll go up by 8.3% benefits as well. Now, guys, any employees on average getting 10% pay rises? No, they're not, right? And so we have a very serious problem here, because real wages have only gone up 5%, but inflation is 10%, which is a negative 5% real wage. But they're the people paying the tax. And so obviously if wages go up, you're going to get more taxes. But if the wages don't go up as high, you're going to get less taxes. But your spending is higher because you've got inflation-linked thing. So inflation is breaking everything. Now the government is in a real perilous situation now. It is going to need to spend more, but it's going to get less. And old days in the 70s, that was fine. You had a baby boom, which means you had a Ponzi scheme, more new people coming in at the bottom. So even if real wages were going lower, it doesn't matter. You had more people coming at the bottom, so therefore that could support the whole thing, and in total you'll get more taxes, right? Not going to happen now. We have depopulation, basically, right? Or the West thinks we'll just import migrants from everywhere who don't actually work, and that's going to help us. It doesn't help you at all. Again, your tax base is decreasing. You're not getting as much taxes as you normally did, and you have this gap now. So your wages, like in the 70s, you didn't have that. Wages caught up with inflation. So now you've got decreased wages, less tax, more spending, and less people coming in, and more older people coming in. So it's cataclysmic. There's only one way this can go, which is an absolute disaster. The only other way it can go and it's going to come, and everyone knows it, is the Fed is going to pivot very, very soon. Probably everyone's already reckoning December. I think probably January. January they will pivot, and they will just go with inflation. They'll just go with constant. Everyone will just be inflated away, and that's it. So that is what's going to happen. Everyone's going to get inflated away. They are not going to cope with inflation. Britain already today just said, the Fed will hike 0.75 in November. The Bank of England won't do it. They simply can't do it. And so they're foregoing the whole nation to increasing inflation, going into winter when energy prices will go even higher. And they can't do anything, and no one can do anything. And we will have continual inflation for a very, very, very long time. So, sorry to tell you guys, we have been sacrificed to the altar of inflation, which is the worst. Much better to have a massive depression, bankrupt everyone, house price crash, and within a few months, literally months, it's not even years, months, you're back on track. But they won't do that, because who's the people that will take the brunt? The rich and the elite and the big banks and the JP Morgans, and all of them will go bankrupt. And the big airlines and the big CEOs and all of them, they will suffer the most. So they're not going to let that. They're not going to let the poor and the middle class, have the opportunity to buy houses for very cheap, or to have opportunities to start businesses that compete against these behemoths, and the opportunities to buy all those assets on the cheap. They're not going to allow that in a million years. So we're all sacrificed on the altar of inflation.